Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the show. This is Reservations, and I'm Jeremy Blair.
And I'm Rain Whalen. So, dude, Ashley and I went and saw The Crow.
Yeah.
The other night. Look, it was fine. Like, it was nothing to write home about. I think the reviews are being a little unfair, in my opinion. I think so, because, like, look, nothing is going to be able to hold up against the 94 version. You know, the 94 version with the... there was an honest trailer that they just made about it, and he said something that I'm like, yeah, I agree with that. That they really went for vibes in the 94 version, and I'm like, yeah. So none of those vibes are in this one. But like, look, Bill Skarsgård was great.
Yeah.
I mean, you would hope that the guy playing our Crow would be great, but yeah, Bill was great. FKA Twigs was fine, I guess. I really don't like her voice.
Okay.
But all in all, it was fine. It was definitely much more brutal than the 94 version. Okay. Because they could get a little bit more brutal, because, you know, with special effects and things like that. The worst one, the one that made Ashley and I both cringe, is when we get to the big climactic fight scene.
Spoiler alert.
He sticks,
for those of you who...
Spoiler alert.
There it is.
I mean, this isn't really that much of a spoiler, but he's got a katana and he sticks it in the guy's mouth and breaks his jaw with it.
Ooh.
And you watch his jaw just like...
Oh, that's cool.
It's, yeah, both Ashley and I both went, ooh. But I mean, look, it was fine. The thing that Ashley didn't like, and this isn't a spoiler because they gave it away in the trailer, is she didn't like, and I agree, is that our villain also has supernatural powers.
Oh, Danny Houston.
Yeah, Danny Houston's character also has supernatural powers. And I was like, yeah, you know, Top Dollar didn't need supernatural powers. He was just a gangster.
I would have gone to see it opening day if that guy had returned back to play Top Dollar.
I mean, you know,
I don't care how bad it sucks.
He hasn't been doing much since Nope.
That's true. You know? God, I would have given it anything.
But like IGN gave it a 5 out of 10, and I was like, yeah. So on my Letterboxd, I gave it a 3.
3?
Like, it was fine.
Generous. Yeah.
Ashley gave it a 3.5.
Oh, damn.
So I mean, like, would I pay to go see it again? No. Will I physically own it? No. But like, look, it was all right. My other thing, then we'll move on, is I didn't like that they made his suit up scene, the makeup that Eric puts on. Why did they have to make it look like Pennywise?
Yeah, it is. You know, it's clownish. Yeah, a little bit. It's a little Pennywise adjacent, and maybe that's just because it's obviously the same person, and so any sort of exaggerated makeup he puts on is gonna seem a little, you know, Pennywise, I suppose. But to bring us up,
well, especially hang on one more second, especially since Bill has confirmed he is coming back for Welcome to Derry. So,
interesting. I didn't know.
He will never escape Pennywise.
It's a good gig, you know.
Yeah. Anyway, as you were saying before I cut you off,
to bring us up a little bit from that, I saw A Strange Darling over the weekend, and I'm not going to tell you anything about it. People are writing, like, if anyone is on like film review TikTok or whatever, everyone is saying they loved it, but they're not going to tell you anything about it. It's best to go in, no trailer, no nothing. I agree.
Okay.
No trailer, no nothing. Just go in, and it was rad. It was so good. It exceeded my expectations because it kind of came out of nowhere. And it's rad. So.
Well, and what sucks is I don't think it's showing here in Midland, so...
It was showing at our Cinemark, the one that's like right by our apartment, so, which I was surprised by. I thought I was going to have to go to like Alamo Drafthouse or AMC or something, but...
oh, no, Odessa Synergy showing it.
Boom! Okay. Go see Strange Darling.
Yeah, Might need to go check that.
Yep, tons of fun. Yeah, that's all I'm gonna say.
Nice. Well, we're not here to talk about the movies that we saw over the weekend. So, Jeremy, today was your pick. What are we talking about today?
Today, we are discussing Yorgos Lanthimos' 2017 film, The Killing of a Sacred Deer.
So this was a first watch for me, even though I really wanted to see it after we did The Lobster. Because I just really wanted to indulge myself in Yorgos' work. Poor Things is on my list. The Favorite is on my list as well.
All great.
And this one was on my list, and I don't know why I never got around to it. So I am kind of glad that I am glad that you put it on your list for this season. I do have a lot of questions, and as I was messaging you at work about it, I don't know why the dialogue bothered me so much. Let me just say this now. I did really enjoy the film.
That's good.
I really, really enjoyed it, but I don't know why the dialogue was bothering me so much. Because you're right. It is the exact same cadence and speech as The Lobster, but I was just like, why are they all talking like this?
Yeah, it is. It's a really interesting way to have your characters speak to one another. I mean, it's very bizarre. It's very off-putting. It's odd to hear people say exactly what they're thinking 100% of the time. It's sort of surreal and a little uncanny to hear people speak that way. But yeah, I mean, I don't know if it's strictly a Lanthimos thing. The guy who wrote this with him, oh man, I'm looking at his name now. Forget it. Yeah, his name is crazy. But he also wrote The Lobster and Dogtooth with Lanthimos also. So,
yeah, because I was going to say, I haven't seen Poor Things all the way through. I've seen clips, and it seems like the speech and cadence are a little bit different.
Yeah, it's not like that in The Favorite or Poor Things. I have not seen Kinds of Kindness yet, although it'll be on Hulu in a few days, so I'll get my chance soon.
Nice. And shout out to our buddy Kale telling us about it.
Oh yeah, dude, Kale. Yeah, he saw it. And he was like, "You gotta see it." And I was like, "I know," but
you don't have to tell me twice, okay?
Didn't get around to it, but what are you gonna do? All right, let's I guess let's hit him with that quick synopsis.
Yeah.
Okay.
Do the best you can, buddy.
Yeah. I shall. So the film is sort of a modern day retelling of a Greek tragedy of Imphigenia, it doesn't matter. We'll go over that in a little bit. But it follows Dr. Murphy. He is a cardiologist who a few years ago killed a patient as he was performing a surgery intoxicated, and he takes the patient's son sort of under his wings, sort of looking after him, because of his guilt and all of that. However, the son, Martin, played by Barry Keoghan, who's so hot right now.
Dude, he's so hot right
now. He has placed sort of a vengeful curse on the Murphy family, saying that if he doesn't kill a member of his family, that they will all get sick and die. And sure enough, his son gets sick, his daughter gets sick, and they are getting worse and worse as he tries to grapple with what to do and how to fix it, and does he really have to kill anybody? And it turns out that, I mean, there is really nothing he can do. And Martin just sinks his teeth into this family. And through his influence and through this curse, he really, or I'm calling it a curse, whatever, we can call it whatever we want. Stephen really does have to make that decision. And he ends up sort of doing a Russian roulette style thing in the living room, which is sort of absurd and a little silly, and we'll cover that. And he ends up killing his youngest son, and the curse is lifted. His daughter is better. His wife doesn't get sick, and they move on. That's the killing of a sacred deer, sort of.
Yeah. I think we should start off with the title of this episode. Okay. Unfair balance, which I came up with. Was very proud of. But because, when Martin first tells Stephen, Colin Farrell, about I like curse. Curse is the easiest way to describe it.
Sure.
When we first tells him about it, because he's very open, he doesn't try to hide like what he's doing. He straight up tells him like, this is what's going to happen. He tells him it's all about balancing. You killed my dad, so one of your family has to die now. But the unfair part of it is, I guess, why does Stephen have to be the one? Because, Stephen, I
don't know. I would disagree with you on that. I think the unfairness is that his family is involved. The fair part would be to just kill Stephen. To have Stephen die of whatever. I think the unfair part of it all is that, again, when Anna goes and meets with Martin one-on-one during that infamous spaghetti scene, that she tells him, like, why do my kids have to pay the price? Why do I have to pay the price for this? And that really is the unfairness of it all. Is that Martin has really just taken over this family and for his revenge, basically. I think to start off, I would say that if you are watching this movie and your first instinct is to figure out how he's doing it, you're not going to have a good time, because the movie does not explain it. The movie will never explain it, because it's a retelling of this great tragedy in which we'll go over here in just a second. But I'm trying to find her name. Give me 1 second. Artemis. When it's Artemis is the one that demands retribution for her deer being killed.
Mm-hmm.
Again, these are gods and mortals, and living amongst each other in this in this mythical world. When you put it in a real world setting, it's really no other way to say how he's doing it besides it's just happening, and he somehow has willed this into existence. Like there's no other way, because that's what I try to do. The first time I saw it, I go, well, how'd he do it?
Yeah, I kind of gave up on that once it started happening, because I was like, well, how is he doing this? Especially when he tells Stephen, first it's going to be paralysis, then it's going to be refusal to eat, then it's going to be bleeding from the eyes, and then they're dead.
Yeah.
And I was like, okay, well, how is he going to pull this off? And then when Kim gets sick, that's when I was just like, you know what? I don't think I'm ever going to know. So
and you won't.
I'm just going to give up on this.
Isn't that so interesting?
Sidebar, what is really interesting about this sort of like Greek retelling, the actor who plays Bob, the son, is now most famous for his role as I don't remember his character's name, but he's in the new God of War games as Kratos' son, God of War, and God of War Ragnarok.
I didn't know that.
Which he got an award for like best performance.
Cool.
Because he mocapped the character and he voiced the character.
That's cool.
So it was very. Once I knew that was him, I was like, it's really weird not hearing anyone just scream at him and call him boy, because that's all. I've never played the new God of War games from start to finish, just because I don't know, they're not my type of game. But that's what Kratos does the whole game. He just goes boy, even though he has a name.
That's interesting.
But and then of course Kim, I was like, I've seen her before. She was also she was in you're gonna laugh, that really awful beat you over the head Tomorrowland movie.
Oh, I didn't see that.
It's look, you watch it for George Clooney and that's it. But they really beat you over the head with the message of we got to preserve the earth. And it's like you could have done that in a much more subtle, smarter way. But anyway, yeah. So I stopped very early on, like just trying to figure out how he's doing this.
Yeah, yeah, you're not going to know, and that's fine. I think that lends to its sort of surreal, uncanny sort of storytelling. But real quick, let's go over just the story in general. All right.
Mm-hmm.
So, Iphigenia or Iphigenia, whatever.
And they say it in the movie, and I meant to like
because she got an A+ on her report over it, which is whatever. Anyway, so Agamemnon is responsible for hunting down and killing this deer, which belonged to Artemis. Artemis, that was her sacred deer. And for retribution, she demanded a sacrifice. Now, instead of killing Agamemnon, she makes Agamemnon sacrifice one of his children, that being Iphigenia, whatever. And she goes willingly. She understands that her father had done this horrible thing and that she's willing to make the sacrifice to make the balance. And seeing her bravery and her willingness to move ahead with the sacrifice at her own, at her own disadvantage, Artemis lets her go and makes her into a priestess or whatever. And so the idea of someone doing something wrong to someone else, that's someone else punishing them by making them punish someone else, is really interesting. And having that power dynamic, because I don't know if you watched the video I sent you today, the Speaking of Movies video.
I started to, and then once the video started and said heavy spoilers, Ashley was still in the room, and I was like, oh, if you still, because she still really wants to see this movie.
Oh, okay.
I was like, then maybe not. So I didn't actually get a chance to
that's
watch
a shame.
it.
Because it's really good. So he mentions the very opening of the film, kind of telling you what the film is about in just a few minutes, which is, the power of a beating heart, yet having to rely on human hands to save it, or to have the control over this ailing human heart. And with those hands, of course, being Dr. Murphy's, Stevens, and how Martin is now sort of making them the ailing heart and him having the power over them, and his influence and his infiltration of the family, and the power dynamic switching, is sort of what the movie's about, which I thought was really interesting. And the idea of of him having to choose one of his kids, and eventually would have probably been his wife as well, if they had taken longer, was really interesting. And of course, it comes from the Greek tragedy anyway. Yet instead of sparing the children, he actually does go through with murdering one of them. Which, I mean, at that point, they really didn't have a choice. To be honest.
Now, okay, I want to ask you this, because I thought about this after I finished the movie. This seemed like this hadn't really started until Steven started to distance himself from Martin after the whole Alicia Silverstone sucking on his thumb. That's when it seemed like Martin, enacted the curse. Do you think Martin was trying to essentially be, in simplest terms, be like, you know what, you killed my dad, so now you're going to fill that hole, and you're going to be a father figure to me?
Yes, he was trying to force this this family dynamic by having Steven be a father figure in his life. And he's trying to force his mom and him together. But once that's not working, yeah, I think that, it's like, whatever, then someone's got to go.
Yeah.
If you're not going to replace him, someone's going to join him, is essentially what it is.
Yeah, because I'm going to say, because, the movie tells us 2 different times, sort of a half-truth and then the fuller truth later on, that he's been seeing Martin for a couple of months now. And, none of this really started until, Alicia Silverstone. And again, that makes me laugh, because I was like, holy shit, that's Alicia Silverstone.
It is. It was a surprise. When I saw it the first time, I was very excited. I'm a big fan.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, when she makes a move on him and he's like, oh, nope, gotta go. Yeah. And I find that very interesting, but I agree with what you said, that Martin was like, well, if you're not gonna be my dad, then someone has to join him so I can feel pacified.
Yeah. So,
by not having a dad.
Yeah. So, this wrong can be righted.
Mm-hmm.
And, as the movie progresses, we do, find out that, that he was intoxicated, which they bring up his drinking at the, at that,
that party.
Yeah. Award ceremony or whatever that was. With Bill Camp, by the way. I don't know if we've done a movie with Bill Camp yet. To me, he's one of the greatest character actors working today. I mean, Bill Camp, full stop. Do you need a reminder who Bill Camp is?
No. I know it's Matthew, because I'm never gonna forget him not trying very hard to coerce Nicole Kidman into a hand job.
Yeah, I mean, it took no effort whatsoever. But again, you wouldn't really know if he did or not, because of their monotone, stilted, emotionless, way of speaking to one another. So I guess you wouldn't know. But yeah, no, Bill Camp is up there with me with like Michael Stahlberg. I mean, I think that they're just both incredible. So anyway, oh man, where were we? Sorry.
Well, we were mentioning
his drinking. So
his drinking,
right.
Yeah.
So they had mentioned at the award ceremony that he had not been drinking, that he had stopped. We later find out that probably because he had a patient die while he was doing surgery drunk. And we also see in this scene more of his authority. People seem to listen to him. Anna's sort of, saying, no, we have to go. There's surgery in the morning. And Matthew's like, no, it's early. You know what I mean? And as soon as Stephen goes, no, we have surgery in the morning, he goes, yeah, you're right. And this also, he has this weird sort of dynamic with Anna as well, especially in the bedroom, which is they have bizarre tastes in the bedroom. And he does seem to have a lot of authority, and that switches once Martin starts to become more and more involved with the family, and especially when the illnesses start. Martin starts to get more of these camera shots that Stephen was getting, and things start to look a little more foreboding. And again, the visual language of the film is showing us all of this with the camera placement, camera movements, angles. Lanthimos I think will go down as one of the most interesting filmmakers working with the camera. Because the choices he's making are just incredible. There was an interview he was giving where he said that he wanted the camera to feel like there was someone else watching. Like the camera itself is another presence in the room. It's not an objective view, more of a subjective view, which I thought was really interesting.
Yeah, I mean, well, and since we're on the camera, I really like how he uses the camera in this movie, especially like focusing on other characters' reactions, and we're hearing the other character talking to them. Like with the spaghetti scene, and he's talking about, I used to eat, people used to say I would eat spaghetti like my dad, but we're just focused on Nicole Kidman, but we can hear Martin. I don't know. I was just like, this is so cool. But also really, it really heightens the tension because we're only having to use our imagination on what he's doing. Of course, we know because we can hear the fork, spooning around the spaghetti, but we're really just having to imagine like what Anne is actually seeing in that moment.
I really like that. So most of the shots, so in the video I sent, that I think you should watch. I mean, even after this, I think it's incredible.
Yeah, I'll probably watch it while I'm editing.
He talks about the different sort of shots that are in the film, and a third of them are high angle shots looking down at our characters. A third of them are low angle shots that are looking up at our characters. Some of them are the ghostly, what he calls like the apparition sort of shots, where it seems like we're floating above them. And then most of them are zooms, which is really interesting because he makes a distinction between a dolly push in, like a dolly zoom, and I think it was an optical zoom. So a dolly push is sort of like we're getting closer to an image, but a zoom is we are focused in and drawing attention to an image. And it seems to happen more that we are zooming in on Martin. it is most of the time Martin is on screen, it's a zoom, whether it be faster or painstakingly slow, but we're still zooming in on him. And there are moments afterward, like after there's a scene with Martin, that there's a zoom in the next image, but he's not there. It's to represent sort of his influence and his making his way into the family and this control over the family and this if you want to call it a curse or the illness that is being taken place. And I think that's really effective. And a zoom is you may not notice it at first, but subconsciously it's interesting to see a zoom shot because again we're focusing in and dialing in on a specific person or thing,
right. Yeah, and that does happen a lot. I noticed, and again, I think it really builds up the tension with everything, from again, from like Anne's reactions to Stephen, just sitting in the kid's hospital room, and Kim saying that she doesn't want to eat. And it's really foreboding, but of course, this is supposed to be a mystery. I wouldn't say horror necessarily because it wasn't scary, but it was tense. So I'd say at least a thriller.
Yeah, I think
for sure
people like to put it in the horror category because of this unknown supernatural-esque curse. Yeah, or whatever.
Yeah. Yeah. So I want to I want to talk about Barry's performance in the movie because I remember watching a GQ interview with him while he was promoting Saltburn, and he gets to this movie and he doesn't spend a lot of time talking about it, but he said that once they were done filming, Colin Farrell walked up to him and he said, I think you'd make a great Joker. And sure enough,
here we are
at the end of Matt Reeves' The Batman. There he was.
Yeah.
Hopefully we'll get to see a more fleshed out version of his Joker in part 2.
We'll see
when we get
in
it
5 years,
10 years. Yeah. But I could see that, because again, even though the cadence and the way everyone was speaking, I don't know why it was driving me crazy. But Martin, you think Martin is just maybe a little, I don't want to say autistic, but maybe on the spectrum.
Sure.
But then once we kind of start to see that unravel, especially with the whole, when he calls Stephen and he's like, I've been waiting here for over an hour for you. Where are you? Like, I understand that's important, but once we start to see that unravel and see the facade kind of fall a little bit, it is very menacing, but also kind of innocent, like, again, back to the spaghetti scene, he tells Anne, what's happening. Like, this is the closest I can think of to justice. Like, it's, I don't know.
No, I see what you mean.
It's like this. Yeah.
He's like a kid who, doesn't know how to properly regulate his emotions. And so he went to like an extreme because he doesn't know however else to process, what he's going through. I get that. For me, I must have saw Dunkirk first. They came out the same year. I must have saw that first because I didn't go into Dunkirk immediately going, oh, that's the guy from Killing of a Sacred Deer. So I must have saw them in the opposite order. But I remember thinking in both movies, I go, there's something about this kid's face. It's so interesting. And it's kind of like Mads Mikkelsen. I would say Mads Mikkelsen has a similar sort of distinct face. That it's just so interesting to look at because it's not abnormal necessarily, but it's just unique and distinct. I would say.
I would agree. You know, you're gonna laugh at me. The first movie I distinctly remember seeing Barry in, because I don't think we had done Dunkirk just yet. It was Eternals. That was the first movie I remember.
Okay, that was a while.
Actually, seeing
that wasn't that long ago.
Yeah, but again, you know, I don't think we'd done Dunkirk by the time that movie came out. But yeah, I thought the same thing. I was like, his face is very interesting.
It's unique. I know,
but even no, go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, it's not anything crazy. It's not anything abnormal. It's not anything like completely out of the ordinary. It's just so different and uniquely different. And I don't know how else to put it. And that's not me trying not to be mean. It's me really trying to figure out like why I think it mattered he was Martin, because
I think I might have something for you.
Right.
I think it might be because with Barry's face and how he talks in all his roles, I think he has a very expressive face, especially when he doesn't have to show that expression. You know, I don't think we really see Martin smile that much in this movie. And I think the lack of the expressions that we see, I think it adds so much to Barry's performance and again to how his face looks. You know, I thought the same thing. I thought the same thing when I saw Eternals. Like, now granted his character was meant to be a little bit more smug and arrogant, but I don't remember him being very expressive unless he needed to be. And I don't know if that was Chloe Zhao's direction or Barry's acting choices. I would assume Barry's acting choices because, you know, I don't know, man.
Imagine being on this set and wanting to improv, and you know you can't because you have to.
And Yorgos is like,
you have to keep this sort of level of monotone and restraint with everything you say.
Well, and I'm glad we're bringing that up because it shouldn't have been funny because there's very rare, I would say maybe 1% of moments in this movie that are funny. Not like laugh out loud funny, but just kind of like, that's funny. For me, it was when Bob was trying to buy Steven's affection so that Steven would not choose him. You know, like the whole like, you know, I cut my hair for you, Dad. You know, I'm sorry I didn't do it when you asked. You know, I want to be a cardiologist. I just told Mom that to make her feel better. Like that's what I want to be. You know, it made me laugh. I was like, oh my God, like this little kid is trying so desperately to not get killed.
Yeah, there are moments in this movie that are funny. And they have to be sort of purposefully absurd. And you're right, like not necessarily laugh out loud funny, but you know, humorous in a way, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, we're not quite there yet, but one of those is the climax of the movie. I think is sort of purposefully absurd, and not what you're expecting him to do. But we're not there
yet.
Yeah. Because I want to sing Colin Farrell's praises for the next hour and a half.
Oh, dude, if we didn't say it enough in The Lobster, or have we done another movie with him in it yet?
I don't know. That's a good question. I don't think so.
I know.
We did. Did we do in Bruges?
No, not yet.
Shit.
God, not yet. Can't wait. Can't wait when the day comes. Yeah. I fucking love that movie. Oh no, we did Seven Psychopaths.
Oh, that's right.
We did Seven Psychopaths.
There you go.
Because we went back and forth a lot on the title.
Oh, that's right.
Because I loved the idea of calling that episode, and it was "This Dog Is My Patty Hearst."
Yeah.
But yeah, Colin, once again, man, this man can do no wrong. Like, I don't think I've seen a bad movie of his at all.
I mean, I guess I've chosen carefully as well, because I know there are some, I'm sure, but Colin Farrell, it is really interesting his switch from hunky heartthrob action star, playboy, whatever, and then he turns around and he does, he'll do a Martin McDonagh, right? He did In Bruges, and that's sort of different outside of that comfort zone. And then, you see The Lobster and you're like, who even is this guy? It's so crazy. He completely transformed himself for The Lobster. And I've never seen an actor go so far out of that comfort zone that you would associate him with. Or I mean, I don't want to, pretend I know his comfort zone, whatever, but it's not what he was known for. And then he does something like The Lobster, and it's, what? Yeah.
I mean, even like talking about like the Batman, I lost him in that makeup and that performance of the Penguin, which makes me very excited for the show.
Yeah, the show's gonna be good.
It's coming out. It's coming out soon, isn't it? I mean, shit, dude. Even because we were kind of talking about it today, even his guest appearance in Scrubs, dude, fantastic. Like I don't know how he does it, but I'm sure it's probably, I'm sure a love of acting. I'm sure he loves being able to inhabit these different characters, and I think you're right, especially going from the hunky action hero guy, from SWAT, to this sort of dad bod, father of two, cardiac surgeon.
Well, and even if you strip that away, it's still like he's willing to, some people we know, who aren't affiliated with this movie at all, will sit down and think this is silly, pretentious, stupid nonsense. Or they'll think, oh, this is just, surreal and absurd just for the sake of it, which it isn't. He gets it. And I think that's the most refreshing part of it all, is for The Lobster, for Killing of a Sacred Deer, later on for Banshees of Inisherin.
I still need to see that.
He looks at it and he goes, I get it. And you don't expect him to get it. And here we are,
Which, can I be honest, it makes me really excited. I haven't watched it yet. I owned it for a while, but I still have the digital copy. It makes me really excited to watch After Yang.
Oh yeah, I do. I also bought it.
So much. Yeah. Just because I think you're right. I think that's what it all boils down to, is that he to use the meme, he understands the assignment. Yeah. And of course, I've heard in several interviews that Yorgos knows what he wants out of his actors. And I'm sure, having worked with him on the lobster, Colin kind of knew, like, okay, I know what he's going to want from me for this role.
Yeah.
Especially considering, Steven, again, just like everyone else, we rarely see him show emotion with all this monotone speaking. I would say the only times that we really see emotion are when he force feeds Bob that donut. And then when he kidnaps Martin.
Yeah.
I feel like that's the most emotion where you really see him. Well, no, sorry. When he goes out and sobs outside after Bob tries to, butter him up, then because he knows what Bob's doing. Bob's trying to be like, don't kill me, Dad, kill Kim.
Yeah.
And so that breaks him down. But again, Colin playing this the whole movie really restrained is just, it's mind-boggling how he was able to do that the whole movie.
We've been talking about it, but not really discussing it, which is the reason for this monotone, emotionless sort of dialogue delivery. It's really interesting because, again, he does it in The Lobster as well. Everybody does. And it's hard to tell, but they also in Dogtooth as well. And for me, I feel like we're stripping away a lot of unnecessary distraction, I think. I think now that's not all of it. We're also creating a very strange, absurd, foreboding, uncanny reality. People seem to all follow the same rules, which Lanthimos is brilliant at. He comes up with these laws, these rules, and every character abides by them. It's what makes really good surrealism, is we come up with something arbitrary that would be weird in reality, but in this reality, everyone sees it as normalized. It's a rule we all follow. And in this universe, it seems, everyone is sort of, apathetic in their emotion, and everyone is always speaking their mind, always telling the truth. Everyone seems to use another modern phrase, saying the quiet part out loud all the time.
Yeah.
And it's awkward, and it's off-putting, and it's cringe to have these characters say exactly what they're thinking, not hiding any sort of information from anybody, no matter how it's going to make them feel or how it's going to make them look or sound. When Steven tells Bob that story,
oh my dude,
when he tells him that story, it's at the hospital, about secrets. It's not really brought up again, but it's a great example of, in this world, like, he is embarrassed by it, but there's no physical manifestation of embarrassment or shame or or anything. He is just telling him the story like it was anything. And of course he does build it up like it is embarrassing. It is something he is ashamed of. It's something he's never told anybody before. And yet it gets no reaction from Bob.
Yeah. Well, and and I was going to say, as soon as you brought that up, it's also like the whole thing of them focusing on Kim's getting her period.
Oh yeah,
you know,
yeah.
And like, I was like, why are we focusing on this so much? but I think you're right. I think it is meant to be very more matter of fact.
Well, what I love about this and The Lobster is the matter of fact and how they speak and how matter of fact everything is. They talk about her getting her period, or him doing that to his father, or him doing surgery intoxicated, or anything, like they were talking about the watches in the beginning.
Yeah.
It's all the same, which I find fascinating. And it's probably my favorite thing about those two films is this dry, matter-of-fact delivery. I love it. It works to me more in The Lobster, but it does have a place here, and it feels right here as well.
I agree. Even though it was kind of driving me a little bit crazy, it works here, especially considering we spend most of the movie in a hospital. I guess you would want your doctor to be very matter of fact with you,
sure,
rather than kind of beat around the bush and him and haw. But yeah, dude, the fucking that story that Steven tells Bob, dude, I was like, oh my god, are we like and with the rhythm too of this monotone voice, I was like, oh my god, what is going to happen with this story?
yeah.
But yeah, man, I think the reason why maybe I didn't really notice it in The Lobster was, I guess, because The Lobster was meant to be or is a dark comedy.
That's true. The comedy, and it
maybe
is a
that's
little
why
more upfront with its absurdist surrealism, with people being turned into animals.
Yeah. So I think maybe that's why I didn't notice it, or it didn't bother me. I don't know. I mean, again, like I said at the top of the show, it didn't distract me from enjoying the movie. It just, I was like, why? I guess because, since kind of like what you mentioned, this movie is meant to be kind of realistic. I guess I was expecting more fluid dialogue, with the way people would actually talk to one another.
Yeah.
But again, it didn't take away from my enjoyment at all. The only time it really bothered me, the biggest time it bothered me, was when Kim runs away.
Crawls away.
And she's doing the whole, like, I would die for you, Dad. I think I've proven, just like very matter of fact, as he's like cleaning her knees, and like, I think that's the only time it really like bothered me.
Sure, I understand.
I was like, a 16-year-old, like, she wouldn't be talking.
See, that's
like
what's
that.
so interesting about the movie, because I mean, how old is Bob? And he's talking the exact same way everyone else is.
That's true.
It is very interesting, and that's why I like these movies. I think it's one of my favorite parts about the movie. Okay, when this will get us to the end, when Bob first gets out of bed and notices his legs are numb and that he is paralyzed from the waist down. Did you notice anything interesting about his room?
I was trying to look. I was like, because there's a reason we haven't gone in the room yet. But I guess I missed something.
That's okay. Right above his bed, there's a framed picture of a deer above Bob's bed. So that's a little foreshadowing.
Interesting.
I know, right? It also kind of doesn't fit the decor, so you can. I mean, it sticks out a little bit. But anyway, so I I have not read this anywhere. I have not seen this anywhere. This is my own personal thing. I think he shot Bob on purpose. I think he missed a couple of times, and he was genuinely trying to make it as random as he could, but he kept taking off his hood or his whatever, the beanie or whatever. He kept taking it off, so he keeps memorizing where people are, and then he just decided, let's get it over with, and he shot Bob. I think he did it on purpose. That's my personal feelings about it.
Well, I could see that. Because at first, I would thought that maybe he was removing his beanie so he could reload the chamber.
Or see who got hit as well. So genuinely, I do think those first 2 times he was making it as random as he could. But I think
after the second time
he missed, he goes, let's just end it. Like, it's, again,
yeah, because he doesn't seem...
I'm forcing it. But
again,
it's my truth.
But it makes sense because he doesn't spin around as much that third time, and he's not kind of waving the gun around. He's kind of purposefully aiming it that third time. So that makes sense.
We should probably explain.
But a part of me,
for those of you who didn't see it, sorry. Stephen has decided that the way he's going to do it, the way he's going to decide, quote, who is going to die, is he is going to
let fate decide.
Tie everyone up, put them all in the living room in a sort of triangle circle around him. Triangle because there's only 3 of them, but they're around him. And blindfold them and himself as he spins around with a rifle, and he just randomly will stop, pull the trigger, whoever gets hit gets hit. And it is very silly. Well, absurd. I would say it's absurd. It's not silly. Because why would you do it that way? It's so bizarre, and it's a little off-putting, and just like the whole movie is.
I mean, on the one hand, I get it, because like I said, he's letting fate decide. Like, okay, like, I'm not responsible because I can't see who I'm shooting for. Again, if we're going off the theory that it truly was that he, Bob just happened to be the one who got chosen. But yeah, it is sort of, I mean, like, so I get it, because like maybe he was like, there's just no other way. I'm not gonna brutally stab someone. I'm not gonna bludgeon them. We'll make it quick and simple. Just boom, shot. There we go. But yeah, on the other hand, it is a little absurd. But then, like you said, but then again, so is the whole movie. But hang on, I want to circle back to this whole thing, because again, there is evidence to suggest that maybe, that after that second shot, he was like, let's just get this over with.
He is the one that is the furthest along in the illness, so it may just be like, what's going to happen?
A mercy.
Yeah, what's going to happen if I do shoot, Anna or Kim? Like, is he going to get better, or is he going to be stuck where he's at?
Yeah.
If you want to give him the benefit of the doubt.
Yeah. If you want to give him the benefit, I think both hold up really well. I think your theory that he purposefully shot Bob, or that it ultimately was like, the fates aligned, and on that third shot.
Yeah, maybe.
I don't know. I kind of like your theory, because again, he doesn't spin around as much as he did the first 2 times. It does seem like he's intentionally aiming his gun on that third one. So yeah.
I did like that he missed the first 2 times. I think even for this movie, it would have been unrealistic for him to hit someone the first time.
Yeah.
And it builds tension, which is good storytelling.
Yeah. And the fact that he misses both Anna and Kim But then Bob's the one who gets hit. You know what, man? No, fuck it. You're right. I think he killed Bob intentionally.
Maybe
because the first two shots whiz by Kim and Anna, but the third one is the one that hits Bob. Nah. I think you're right. Sorry, hang on. I think you're right. I think he knew that Bob was not going to be able to come back from this. Bob was further along than everyone else. Let me just put him out of his misery and just end this altogether.
By a pretty big margin. I mean, it doesn't really give how long it was between the two of them getting sick. But yeah, he was pretty far along because he was bleeding out of his eyes. So,
yeah. Now, I want to talk about the final wordless exchange between the Murphys and Martin.
Mm-hmm.
What do you think Yorgos was trying to accomplish with that? Like this, they see him walk into the diner, and then they all get up and leave. Do you think it was more of like a? Because I know Anna definitely blames Martin for Bob getting killed.
Yeah, but I mean, okay? I think that it is sort of an acknowledgement of balance is restored, whether it be fair or not. Because Kim's better. Anna didn't get sick. It's things are essentially back to normal with the absence of Bob, and I think it's sort of an acknowledgement, but it is a parting of ways as well. Like, it's done. We're done. We're not going to see each other again. Was my interpretation of it.
That makes sense.
Because Kim really did have. Well, Kim was also being manipulated pretty heavily by Martin. Again, to get closer to the family, so she may have still have had feelings for Martin. I don't know if that goes away with the illness. But it's hard, It's hard when, in a movie like this, people aren't acting or reacting in normal ways or in age-appropriate ways, because them being teenagers, they're still not acting like it. So it's hard to tell what that exchange means when we're not used to seeing or interpreting emotion from anyone, especially in their face. I mean, it's like, good luck.
Yeah, I looked it up just because I was curious, and all I could find was that Anna shoots him an icy look, and that was it.
Yeah.
I'm like, yeah, I guess, but
is Martin really? I mean, Martin is to blame, of course, for the literal illness.
Yeah.
But Steven killed his dad. Steven was, negligent on the job.
True.
So I mean,
that's true.
Well, you could argue also that in the very beginning that was the surgery. I haven't seen anyone say that yet. If that's implied or not. That that's the surgery.
Well, there's something we didn't talk about real quick. Kind of going back into tying into the title of this episode. When Martin's trying to have Steven understand why he's doing all this, he bites Steven on the arm. And then he bites himself.
Yeah.
And he was like, see, it's symbolic. I didn't really get that either.
Well, no, he's trying to show him that, if we're both bit, there's balance.
Okay.
You know what I mean? Like, it doesn't, to Martin, it doesn't matter who does it, which again is why it doesn't matter who dies. It just matters that someone dies. It matters that someone gets bit or someone bites. It doesn't matter who bites, as long as both of them are bit. Does that make sense?
That makes sense. Okay. Yeah. So the reason why I thought it was unfair is like, okay, well then why does Steven have to be the one to kill someone? Like why don't you just kill someone, Martin? But
well,
I guess it makes sense.
If Steven took his father's life, Steven has to take one of his family's lives. I guess to Martin, the balance comes in him, Steven being the one to do the killing in both, for both deaths.
Okay, I guess that makes sense as well. So
yeah.
Well, buddy, are you ready to wrap up?
Yeah.
So again, I really enjoyed the movie. I'm not going to let the dialogue bother it. I really enjoyed it.
It's worth watching again.
I told Ashley
at least once more, because I mean, just watch it for the camera. I mean, the camera is just so brilliantly put in placed and utilized. Lanthimos is just amazing.
I told Ashley that because she really wants to see it, mainly for Barry, because she's in love with Barry Keoghan.
She'll be disappointed. He's not hot Barry.
I told her, I was like, I don't know if you'll like this one. I was like, it's pretty weird, and she was like, well, we'll see. But yeah, man, I really enjoyed it. It's gonna be hard to follow up with this.
Yeah, maybe. Yeah, I was. Haley and I talked about it. I may take a week, 2 at the most. So,
yeah. So before we close out the episode, everyone. So, you mentioned it last week, right?
I may have. I don't remember. But my wife and I are having a baby girl. She is scheduled to be induced at the time of this recording in 2 days. So I'm going to take a week or two off, depending on how it goes, because we'll have a newborn, and how that goes.
Yeah, everyone. So, so we decided to not let the podcast sit idle while Jeremy's being a daddy. So I'm going to do some solo episodes, maybe talk about maybe some of our favorite episodes, maybe give some reviews, just for the time being, until Jeremy comes back. They probably won't be official season 10 episodes. They'll probably just be one-offs. I'll probably still do audio format as well, so if you don't like looking at me, that's fine. But don't expect like a format like this of me breaking down a movie, because we tried to do that with Limelight. It was hard.
I love that movie.
But I can give you my unsolicited opinions for at least an hour.
Sure. God, you're still gonna do an hour?
I'm gonna try.
Okay, that's crazy.
But with that being said, would you at least like to know what we're going to talk about when you come back?
Yes, maybe during, in between sleeping and having my hair on fire, perhaps I could do some research.
So, well, then I'll give you a choice.
All right.
Because I have these two. We can have a really fun time, or we can have a really dense time where we're going to have to do probably a little bit more research.
Ooh, that's interesting. Fun time or research time? Well, okay. Here's the God's honest truth.
I
have a hard time when we discuss pretty straightforward movies I think some of the worst I've ever done is when we discussed like Office Space, or when we discuss like a movie with like it's like there's no mystery, there's no puzzle, there's no interpretation. Like, so I'm gonna pick the dense one. I'm gonna do that.
Okay, well this was gonna be the pick regardless.
Oh, okay, great.
But then I was like, well, you know, with Maya, you're fine. With Maya being here, I was like, you know, maybe he wants to have a fun time. But apparently not.
Nope.
So the next time we are together, which we'll maybe make a post when that day comes, but just so everyone can maybe prepare. So when we come back together, we will be discussing Akira Kurosawa's adaptation of King Lear next week. Well, not next week. Next time, we're talking about Ran.
Cool.
Which I'm very excited for. I don't think either of us have seen this movie, right?
I have not seen it. I have owned a copy for years, but I have not.
Yeah. And I think the only reason why this is going to be dense is because I don't know the story of King Lear very well. So I'm going to have to understand King Lear to understand the story. And it's in Japanese. So there's that too.
Yeah, I heard this is in vibrant Technicolor.
Hell yeah!
It's gonna be it's gonna be like the opposite of Seven Samurai. Seven Samurai is, of course, this noirish black and white, but this is gonna be really vibrant, and it'll be cool. I'm excited.
Well, and we got that Steelbook 4K, that I lucked out on because I think they were sold out, and then I think I just happened upon it. Was that when we went and saw The Whale? No, I don't think it was. I don't remember. I just remember I got it well after it was sold out from Best Buy, and I was so happy.
Yeah, be stoked.
But all right, everyone. Well, we hoped you enjoyed this episode of The Killing of a Sacred Deer, and we'll see you. Both of us will see you sometime in the future for Akira Kurosawa's Ran.